In this video, I'm going to be going through with you guys what I would do if I started my gym journey again. If I had to restart my gym journey and I had to start from scratch and I had to start from day one and square one, what on earth would I do? Before we get into this video, I'm just going to briefly introduce myself and my journey to you guys so you know where I'm coming from and you know the headspace I'm in for this video and where I started. So, my name is Ryan. I'm a 19-year-old from the UK, and in 2021 when I started my gym journey, as I said, I was weighing 51 kg, looking just like this right here. And now in 2024, I'm looking like this, weighing 69 kg. And I'm on a mission to help skinny young men who have previously struggled with weight gain and really struggle with it to sculpt their physiques and to overcome that problem and to achieve their dream physiques. So without further ado, let's get into this video. So the first thing I would tell you guys that you have to do this, right? So you have to have a goal and you have to have a clear plan in place. Because if you don't have a goal, life without goal is chaos because you have nothing to work towards, which can lead to you getting demotivated, confused with why you're doing it, and you're really asking yourself, why am I doing this? And the likelihood of you feeling lost is going to go up. Therefore, you're probably going to quit, like, really early into your journey. Having something to work towards is so important. And if you don't have a purpose, especially at the start of something you do, then you're going to lose motivation really quickly because it takes a while for that one thing you're doing and that one thing you're starting to become a normal part in your life. And it takes a while to do that thing you're doing on days you don't want to do it but you still show up. It takes a while to do that. When I started the gym and I had the slightest thought of I didn't really want to go, I didn't go. But the longer I've done it and the more it's become normal in my life, the more I go on the days I don't really want to, and I know when I have to, and that's the most important time to push yourself. But that's another video. But having a clear goal in place is so important. I'm going to take you guys on a little journey real quick. So this is my goals for 2024. I've rubbed a lot of it off because I've changed a lot, but I had this on my goals list, and I put that on at the start of 2024. And guess what? I did it 2 months before I was 19. So making sure I don't know if the camera was, yeah. So making sure that you set goals for yourself and you have a purpose and you're actually doing it for something is so important, and that gives you that extra drive and that extra motivation to push yourself further as well. So having a goal in place is so important. And now the exact same things as I was talking about not having a goal can happen with not having a plan. If you don't have a plan, you can get confused, which can lead to you feeling demotivated and lost, and the likelihood of you quitting is a lot higher at the start because you don't have a plan and you don't have anything to follow. Therefore, you're going to get into the gym and you're going to be like, what will I train today? And the chances of you having a bad session are a lot higher because your mind is not going to be focused on the muscle you're going to be training. For example, obviously with my split, when I'm training chest, or like before I'm training chest, I know that I'm training chest. I know that I'm training chest. And actually today I'm training chest, so it's a good example. I already visualize what I'm going to do. But if you turn up to the gym not having a plan and not having a structure, and you don't know what muscle groups you're hitting, and you might do a little bit of chest, you might do a little bit of legs, you might do a little bit of shoulders because you fancy it, then you're not going to have that visualization of wanting to batter your muscles and the visualization of your sets before. And another thing this can lead to, as I said, the demotivation, because you don't really have a plan in place, you don't have a structure in place to follow. Therefore, you're going to feel a little bit lost, and it's just going to feel like, why are you doing this, So making sure you have a plan is so important. And another thing as well, when you start out the gym, getting consistent is like probably the most important thing out of like everything. You've just got to be consistent, and without a plan and without a split, you won't be able to do that because you're not going to have anything, you're not going to have a structure to follow. Okay, so I've got an example for you guys. If you wanted to start up a brand new business, but you didn't have structures of your days, right? If you didn't have structures of what you do at 9 in the morning and what you do at midday and what you do at 4 p.m, etc., 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 and you want to start this new business, but you have absolutely no idea what you're doing, or for example, you don't plan your day before, or you don't plan your day in the morning and you just go straight into it and just completely freestyle, then the chance of you being unproductive and lost and confused in what you're doing is so much higher. Therefore, you're literally restricting your chances of success with a business. It's literally the exact same thing with a gym. If you don't give yourself a plan or a split or something to follow or a schedule or a structure to follow, then the chances of you being unsuccessful and not putting on as much muscle and showing up to the gym as much as you want to, the chances of them things happening, they're going to go down. And making sure you have something to follow at the start is vital for getting consistent and getting in that routine, and making sure that the gym slowly becomes part of your normal life. And that doesn't happen straight away, and without a plan that most certainly won't happen, because you won't be able to build up the consistency you want to. So having a plan and a split in place is so important. And the beginner splits I would highly recommend that a lot of people do is push pull legs, rest and repeat. So what that is, so push day consists of chest, triceps and shoulders. And the reason it's called push day is because on all of these movements you push. So on bench press you push the weight up, on triceps you push the weight down, and on shoulders you push the weight up. So that's why it's called push day. Pull day is back and biceps, because on back you pull the weight, and with biceps you pull the weight up. And then legs is just self-explanatory. We all don't want to do it, but it's so important. So that's push pull legs, and then rest, and then you repeat that. Or push pull legs, rest, upper lower. So obviously push is chest, triceps, shoulders. Pull is back and biceps, and then L is legs. Don't need to explain anymore. And then you rest, and then upper and lower. So you train all the muscles in your upper body, then you train all the muscles in your lower body, and and then you rest and you repeat. Making sure you have a goal and a plan in place is so important, and I'll make sure that is the very first thing that I would do. Next thing I would make sure that I focus on and that I prioritize is following the 3-step framework. And you probably heard me mention this last video, and 2 videos ago I made a specific 20-minute video talking about this 3-step framework, taking you guys through it. So I'll leave a little card here for it, but I'll briefly explain it to you guys, and then after this video I really want you to go and watch that 3-step framework video, because it is so important. So this 3-step framework is in relation to how you perform your exercises, and you know, by performing exercises, that's how we stimulate and we grow our muscles, right? So it's so important that you you maximize your efficiency and your productivity when you're performing these exercises, and you do it as best as you possibly can to stimulate the most muscle growth you can. Okay, so the 3 steps I take you through in this 3-step framework is: step 1 is technique, and step 2 is tempo, and step 3 is weight. And what I mean by this is, technique is obviously how you perform the exercise. So for example, if you're doing a straight bar cable bicep curl, you keep your elbows in place, you keep them completely locked in, and you do not move them at all. Therefore you have maximum stimulation on your bicep, and as your elbows aren't moving, your front delt doesn't come into play, because when your elbow moves when you're doing bicep curls, obviously your rear delt comes into play, because you're sort of doing a front raise in order to get the rep up. So by keeping your elbow locked in, you go down and you go up without any movement in the elbows, and you're completely stimulating and putting the time and attention on your bicep. That is an example of good technique. And now the tempo, so how fast you perform the exercise, how slow you perform the exercise, the concentric contraction, the eccentric contraction, all of the muscle contractions involved. So now the weight, so progressively overloading your weight once you get pretty comfortable with the weight you're on. And that is actually another thing I'm going to get onto later in this video and go into more depth about progressive overload, so stay tuned. Okay, so that is the second thing that I would make sure that I prioritize and that I follow strictly, is that 3-step framework. So moving on to step 3, or the third thing that I would do differently and that I would take advantage of, is I would just try and get my diet and my nutrition just intact, and I would try and get it ahead of the game. And I wouldn't suggest completely prioritizing this. I would suggest prioritizing the consistency of your training first. But once you've done that, then nutrition is literally a catalyst for just boosting your muscle gain. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that down the line in the future, your diet can literally become just as important, if not more important, than the training. Because if you've got your training consistent and you can't back it up with a diet, then you're literally restricting your rate of progression. It's like you're going to be hitting a ceiling with your progression if you don't prioritize and if you don't optimize your diet and just make your diet good. Like, you're going to get up here with your progression, but you're going to get slammed back down with the diet, because you're literally restricting yourself because your diet is so bad, and you're not feeding the muscle like what it actually needs, right? And obviously, as a skinny young man, right, you want to gain weight. And I want to gain weight because I'm 51 kg. Remember, I'm back to my skinny self at 51 kg. So if I want to gain weight, then you've got to identify the main thing you've got to do. You've got to make sure you're eating in a caloric surplus. And just to remind you of what caloric surplus is, because it is literally the main thing for gaining weight and putting on muscle, is that you basically eat in excess to what your body actually needs. So you eat more calories in a day than what your body would need to stay at the same weight. So for example, if your maintenance calories for the day was 2,000 calories, you'd eat in a surplus to that, and you'd eat in excess to that, around 2,250 to 2,350 calories, because you're eating more than what your body needs to stay at the same weight. Therefore, if you're eating more than that, then you're gonna gain weight. It's a no-brainer. So making sure you stick into that surplus is so important. And I completely understand that when people are at the start of their journeys, it can be demotivating to be eating a load of food and more food than their body actually needs. It's hard. It can take a toll on them, and I completely understand that. Peak bulk, when you're putting on a little bit of body fat and you're kind of fed up and sick of eating. I completely get that. Okay, but you've got to do it. And a lot of people struggle to stay in this surplus, and that is the reason why they find that they're not gaining weight and their weight is fluctuating, because they stay in the surplus for 3 days of the week, but the other 4 days of the week they just get rid of it, and they don't really think about it, and they don't really take care of their diet, and they don't stay in that surplus. Therefore, people wonder why they don't gain weight, and that is why, because they're not consistently in that surplus, and staying in that surplus consistently is so important. And I've just got a few things that I want to go through with you guys to take advantage of in order to stay in that surplus and just maximize the amount of muscle and the amount of weight you put on during this time of optimizing your diet. And therefore, um, as you're a skinny young man watching this video, you need to eat in a calorie surplus. So these are three things that I would suggest you take advantage of, and that I would take advantage of personally. So, not that. So, liquid calories. And the reason why you should take advantage of liquid calories is because they're also known as invisible calories. When you consume them, you don't feel as full. They're a lot easier to consume and you still have an appetite. So making sure you take advantage of liquid calories if you struggle to gain weight, and if you're a little bit of a hard gainer, is so important, because as I said, they're also known as invisible calories. So why not? The second thing I would take advantage of if I was back in my skinny days, I'd eat caloric dense foods. And what I mean by this is that multiple different foods in a dish, high calories and easy to consume. Just very, very high in calories. So for example, a really, really good one I went to on the bulk a lot was spaghetti or pasta and meatballs. And that was a very caloric dense food. And that was a very caloric dense meal, which was around 1,000 calories, maybe a little bit more than that. And my breakfast on the bulk, I put it in I gave it as an example in my last video. I was eating 6 eggs, a little bit of salmon, and 2 bits of toast, and that added up to around 1,000 calories as well. So eating caloric dense foods and caloric dense meals is so, so, so important. But you need to also make sure you're having your whole foods, because you need to keep it healthy, and you don't want to be putting on as much fat throughout the bulk, because remember, the main goal of the bulk and the main goal of optimizing your nutrition for a surplus and gaining weight and gaining muscle, which is what you want to do because you're a skinny young man, is building as much muscle as possible without putting on as much fat as possible. And this is so important because in the long term, when you come to have to lose that fat, if you just eat pizzas and burgers every day, yeah, that's good, because you're going to get bulky and you're going to put on muscle, because even though it's shit protein, you're still going to have protein from it. You're going to have a lot of fat put on, which is going to make the whole cutting process a lot longer and a lot more mentally stressful for you, because you're going to have to eat less calories to burn more fat, and it's going to be over a longer period of time as well. So making sure that you try and keep it as healthy as you can on the bulk, staying in a surplus, and you're going to thank yourself in the long term. And making sure that you just consider in your mind the whole point of bulking is to put on as much muscle as possible and minimize the amount of fat gain as possible. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. When they start the gym, they you know they do what's called a dirty bulk, where you basically eat whatever you want and you can eat shit that's just ridiculously high in calories, and you can have pizzas and burgers every day. You can do that, but to an extent, because if you struggle to eat and you struggle to gain weight, then eating foods you really want to eat at the start is you know, that's really important for motivation and, you know, like, oh yeah, I like doing this, so I'm going to go to the gym more to ensure that I can do this, right? That is so, so, so important at the start. But making sure you have a little bit of a balance of that. Okay, so prioritizing your diet and making sure you get your diet in place as quick as possible is one main thing I would do, and what is so important. If you guys can take advantage of it, then you're going to get ahead of so many people, trust me. Okay, so supplements, and what I would do with supplements at the start of my journey, and what I would advise you skinny young men to do. So, as we all know, supplements are very important in gym journeys. We see all the guys in good shape taking them, we see all the pro bodybuilders taking them, and we see all these people online sponsored by supplement companies encouraging you guys to take supplements. But personally, in my opinion, I don't think supplements are that necessary, and I don't think you should be taking supplements at the start of your gym journey. And this is because you don't need that extra assistance, because at the start of your gym journey, that's when you gain the most muscle you do ever, right? The rate of progression you're going to see at the start of your gym journey is the quickest you're ever going to see it. You're going to put on the most muscle you ever will in that in a certain time frame. For example, 6 months. In your first 6 months of the gym, you're going to put on the most muscle you ever will, right? So really, you don't need this assistance yet. The only supplement that I would suggest at the start is protein supplements. So protein powder, protein bars, protein snacks. They're the only things that I would suggest, because making sure you increase your protein intake is probably the number one thing outside of getting your training consistent that you need to double down on. Protein powder, protein snacks, protein bars, all of this stuff, that is so important, but you can't become reliant on them, because just to remind you guys through the meaning and what supplements are actually for, they're for filling in their gaps. When you don't reach your protein intake for the day, and when you don't reach your protein goal for the day, so for example, if you're meant to consume 200 grams of protein a day to grow, I highly doubt you need to do that, and you end the day at 170 and you need 30 more, then protein supplements come into play. So that's what protein supplements are for. And don't become too reliant on them, and please don't make them your main source of protein, because I'll be honest, as good as they are and as nice as some of them can taste, they're full of fucking shit, right? They're full of 10 million ingredients that you've never heard of before. Yeah, it's just so important that you make sure you prioritize getting your protein from actual foods you before you fill in the gaps with these protein supplements, right? Does that make sense to you? Okay, cool. And just before we move on, I want to talk to you guys about creatine, because creatine, if you didn't know, is the most researched supplement in the world. There's been the most studies, carried out on this supplement, and some people think it's safe and some people think it's not, and people at the start of their gym journeys, and when they're a little bit down the line, they're a bit skeptical whether to take it, and they're not sure whether to take it because, as I said, they don't know whether it's good or bad for them. And in my opinion, I would suggest, yes, you can take it, but also you don't have to take it. I would first of all say you don't have to take it because you're at the start of your gym journey, as I said. Therefore, you don't necessarily need the aid and the assistance from supplements to help you make progression, because, as I said a couple of minutes ago, the beginning of your gym journey, the beginning phase of your gym journey is when you'll make the most progression throughout your whole entire gym journey, because your muscles just respond like crazy. And on the other hand, I would say, yes, you can take them because of the benefits, such as, obviously, it helps your training and it will help you boost your progression through increasing the level of creatine in your body on top of the naturally produced creatine in your body. Yeah, it just increases and just adds on to that natural level of the creatine levels in your body already, and it improves your brain function. So it doesn't actually just help you in the gym, it can help you elsewhere as well. If it improves your brain function, it means you can do better quality work. So 6-time Mr. Olympia champion Dorian Yates, one of the best bodybuilders of all time, he suggests that people that don't even go to the gym to take it because of the benefits, because how it improves your brain function, etc, etc. And so, yeah, if you want to take creatine and you think it's going to be good for you, then I would 100% recommend it. But as I said, you don't necessarily have to. Okay, so the fourth thing that I would make sure that I prioritise and I really work on all the time and improving is progressive overload. And what progressive overload is slowly improving what you're doing. So, for example, progressive overload in the gym with your weights is just slowly increasing the weights. The stronger you get and the more comfortable you get with your reps. So, for example, when a weight starts to feel light, you move up to the next one. And that's called progressive overload, because you're overloading your muscles with weight that you haven't done before. stimulating it to grow. And the reason that progressive overload leads to growth is because, as I said, you're challenging your muscle with weight you've never done before and things you've never ever done before and new territory, right? Therefore, the bigger demand and the larger demand for recovery for the muscles, therefore, it's going to, the bigger repair, therefore, the more muscle growth that it's going to contribute to. So, making sure you're progressively overloading and constantly trying to improve your strength once you have worked on the 3-step framework. So making sure you prioritize that is super important. So once you've done that, progressive overload can be vital towards muscle growth. And I don't mean progressive overload in terms of just training. I mean progressive overload in terms of nutrition as well. And I'm going to get onto that in a little bit. I'm just going to talk about the training side of progressive overload. So I want to go over a little system with you guys for how progressively overload. And I went over this in the last video, but I'll just quickly recap it. So there's 2 different types of exercises that you progressively overload with in the gym. So you've got your compound exercises and you've got your isolation exercises. And I'm going to start with compound exercises. So if you don't know what they are, I'll briefly recap you. So compound exercises are basically exercises that involve more than one muscle group to help the repetition go up. So for example, with bench press, obviously with bench press, the main muscle that's working is your chest. But other muscles come into play to help the movement and to help the repetition and to help the bench press happen, such as the tricep and the front delt, because you're pushing up. So you're going to have engagement with your tricep and you're going to have engagement with your front delt. And that is what a compound movement is. What I would do to perfectly progressively overload the weight with compound exercises is find a weight where you get between 6 to 8 reps that's a little bit challenging for you. And then keep doing that and keep working on that weight. And when you eventually get strong enough and comfortable enough with between, I'd say, 9 to 12 reps, then you'd increase the weight slightly, maybe just the weight above. For example, if you're doing 65 kilos on the bench, then I would suggest just increasing it to 67.5 kilos. Then you'll probably get between 6 to 8 reps again. And then once you get between 9 to 12 very comfortably, then I'll suggest doing the same thing and going up to 70 kg on the bench. And you just keep going like that. And you're going to see, and you're going to look back after a year and you're going to look at your improvement and you'll be like, holy shit. Now onto isolation exercises. So isolation exercises are exercises that only work one muscle group and only one muscle group is involved in it. So for example, an isolation exercises, a well-renowned isolation exercise is lateral raises, for example. So let's use lateral raises as an example. So I would suggest at the start finding a weight where you get between 8 to 12 reps. When you get between 15 to 20 reps, I'd say, with lateral raises, and you get pretty comfortable with that, then slowly increase the weight up to the next one. And you can't increase the weight, quickly with lateral raises because of how humbling they are. And if you do lateral raises, you will know how humbling they are. So making sure you just progressively overload bit by bit is so important. And as I said, over the long term, you'll see the serious progression you have made. Now I've talked about the training side of progressive overload, you're probably wondering what on earth I mean by the nutrition side of progressive overload. And I mean that, as I said earlier, you're not expected to perfect your nutrition and to perfect your diet at the start of your gym journey, because we don't really want to be eating healthy all the time. We want to have the freedom to eat whatever the fuck we want. And as a skinny young man, you sort of do have that freedom. But what I mean by progressively overloading your nutrition is slowly over time, you're going to work towards perfecting your diet and optimizing your diet slowly but surely. For example, so on my previous bulk, as I said, my breakfast was 6 eggs, 2 bits of salmon and 2 bits of toast. And if you ask my 51 kg self, Ryan, at 51 kg, could you eat 6 eggs, 2 bits of salmon and 2 bits of toast as one meal for the day? And I was having like 4 or 5 meals. He would say, absolutely not, because he wouldn't be capable of eating that. And what I mean by progressively overloaded is slowly increasing the amount you eat over time, because as I said earlier as well, if you're a skinny young man and you want to put on weight and muscle, then you need to be in a calorie surplus, and constantly being in a calorie surplus at the start of your journey is very, very difficult. So progressively overloading the amount you eat. So for example, I would suggest to my 51 kg self, Ryan, start light, mate. Yeah, start light. Don't bother eating too much. Just make sure you're increasing your protein and slowly increase the amount you eat, over the course of time, right? So for example, I probably started at eating 2 or maybe 3 eggs at absolute max with 1 bit of toast. And I remember I went through a phase for like 6 months where my breakfast was just 2 bits of Marmite toast, and I wouldn't recommend that at all. But that's just an example of, you know, how little I was eating, and I can't go straight to eating 6 eggs and being in that surplus all the time and getting enough protein in. It just doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time and slowly, progressively overloading the amount you eat. So the more you get comfortable and the more you feel like you have an appetite after you've finished your meal. So for example, when I would suggest for me when I started eating 3 eggs and one bit of toast. Okay, I think that's a perfect amount for me at the start, and in order to be on track to eating enough in order to grow at the start, right? So once I would get comfortable with eating 3 eggs and a bit of toast, then I'll slowly increase that to either 4 eggs and a bit of toast or 3 eggs and two bits of toast. You see what I'm trying to say? You slowly increase the amount you eat over time, and therefore you're going to see the progression, and you're going to get up to when you're eating 6 eggs, a bit of salmon and two toasts, and you're like, shit, how on earth am I eating this much? And then obviously if you get a little bit comfortable with that, you don't really want to keep increasing it, and you won't keep increasing it because there'll be a point where you're eating enough food to you don't need to increase it anymore because you're just guaranteed to be in the surplus anyway. Because 6 eggs, two bits of salmon and a toast, I put the macronutrients up in like the last video and I worked out it's around 1,000 calories, so you don't really need to increase it from there. But progressively overload at the start. It's literally the same principle of training, right? You make so much progression when you start, and then it slowly plateaus, and the amount of progression you make slowly dips per year. And it's like with nutrition. You go through a phase where obviously you start small, as I said, and then the progressive overload with the nutrition goes crazy, and then it gets to a point where you don't necessarily need to keep doing that because you're eating so much to the point where you're going to be in a surplus regardless of, you know, what you eat. So yeah, making sure you progressively overload your nutrition is so important. So starting off small and then slowly increasing the portion sizes and the food sizes. And don't worry if you're not in a surplus straight away, because as I said, these things don't happen overnight, and good things and things of value take time. And you know, a surplus can contribute to muscle growth, and that is higher value. So these things take time to get consistent with and to optimize. Okay, so now you know, now you've learned about progressive overload in terms of nutrition, progressive overload in terms of training, working on that 3-step framework, the importance of diet, and the importance of setting a goal and creating a plan. Now I'm going to get onto the thing that once you've mastered all of them, this is something that I just wish that I got in place and that I knew was so important. And once you get all of that stuff that I was talking about before consistent, this is literally just as important, and if not more important, rest and recovery, right? When you recover and rest, that is when your muscles grow, and people don't realize that. And people think quantity over quantity. Sorry, and people think with rest and recovery in terms of getting enough rest and recovery, they think quantity over quality. The more I go to the gym, the more I'm going to grow. Even if I have a shit session and even if my muscles sore, it doesn't matter because I'm in the gym and I'm doing my exercises. Even if my muscles are sore, I'm going to grow because I'm showing up to the gym 6-7 times a week. It doesn't matter. The more I show up, the more my muscles are going to grow. And I'll be honest with you, my friend, that's completely that's the furthest from the truth you can possibly be, because when you actually rest and recover, that's when your muscles grow, as I have said so many times in these videos. So I hope it's drilled into that brain of yours. The more you recover and the more you get rest, when your muscles are sore, the more you're going to be able to, the muscles are going to recover. Therefore, when you get back to training the next week, you're going to be able to fucking push yourself ridiculously hard, which is going to lead to more muscle growth. And if you're showing up to the gym when you're constantly sore, your muscles are going to be more vulnerable to injury. So making sure you get enough rest is so, so, so important. So I would suggest going to the gym no more than 5 days a week, ensuring that you get 2 days of rest and recovery where your muscles and your body does nothing, ensuring that you're gonna be fired up for your next split, right? Honestly, if you're just making sure you're getting enough recovery, you're probably getting ahead of 99% of newcomers to the gym because they don't realise how important it is, right? Obviously, making sure that you're training and your diet and that's probably more important before this. But making sure you get enough recovery and rest after that just takes you to the next level, okay? So making sure you do that, and as I said, making sure you get your training and your diet and all of that consistent is probably more important than this at the start. So what I would suggest for you and what I would suggest for myself at the start is going to the gym no longer than 5 days a week, as I said. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. That is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you drop a like, a comment and a subscription. Therefore, the algorithm can recommend me to you more, and you can learn more about how to take yourself from that skinny young man who has previously struggled with weight gain into sculpting their dream physique. So without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next one. Whoop.